I mean, you have been a campaigner for the poorest in society for a very long time. So it seems rather odd that you're sitting there defending a policy that the likes of Age UK, Citizens Advice, I've been campaigning on it myself, are pulling their hair out about 780,000 pensioners on below £11,400 a year are not going to get the winter fuel payment because they don't get pension credit. There are systems that could be put in place to fix it. Why are you defending this?
Well, we are working really hard to put systems in place to fix it. Part of the intention behind the move that we've made is to deal with the £22 billion economic black hole. I won't dwell on that too much, Martin, because I know we've made that argument. I know you want to talk about.
Well, but it's not going to fix the 22 billion black hole if your solution is encouraging more people to take up pension credit, which is going to involve the state having to spend that money, which will then negate all of the supposed savings from the scrapping of the winter fuel payment or the means test of the winter fuel payment. That doesn't work either way. And it also still means that the people who are just above the threshold are still in the lurch.
At the poorest, but making sure that we're targeting help at those who most need it, which is why we've introduced this change to the winter fuel payment so that not everybody is universally eligible for it. But we've had a huge drive to get the poorest pensioners onto pension credit. We've had 115% uplift in the numbers that are claiming over the last couple of months because of the work that Liz Kendall's been doing at the Department for Work and Pensions. And there's a particular group that I'm concerned about that we're...
Again, all you're just saying there is, well, this means that not only will people who are on pension credit get the winter fuel payment, they'll also get their pension credit, which means they're going to get even more than those who are above the threshold for pension credit. This is nonsensical. This is completely nonsensical. And it means the worst off of all of these people are the ones just above the threshold who still need the winter fuel payment because, it's expensive to heat your house when you're old.
Concerned about as a government, that group who are just above the threshold, who don't qualify, but who are at the lowest end of the state pension. And we're making sure that for those people, we've extended the household support fund so that councils like mine in Wigan do have something to reach for if people are struggling but don't qualify.
Why should it be down to individual councils? Again, because you're applying so many means tests, so much administration, so many different layers of bureaucracy, which you're going to have to spend money on these things, by the way. Every single time that you're adding a layer of bureaucracy, you're adding extra money you have to spend to do the administration of the means test, when you could just make it universal, rather than having to expend all of this time, all of this money, all of this energy, and all of this political capital on trying to mitigate the fact that the initial plan of means testing the winter fuel payment is stupid when it's much more efficient to make it universal and then nobody falls through the cracks, whether there's household support funds, whether it's pension credit, whether it's people who are already well enough to pay for it. Everybody gets the payment. And so nobody's falling through the cracks, which again, you could mitigate for really rich pensioners who genuinely don't need it by taxing them £300 more. This is a far more efficient system because you already have the administration in place to be able to administer extra taxation. Whereas all of these different funds, all of this different bureaucracy, you're adding this on top. It's so inefficient. It's terrible.
Huge flaw in what you've just said, Lisa. Right, and the fact is, before we even get on those above the threshold, let's talk about those below the threshold. Those people who are eligible for pension credit, 780,000 of them, who you believe should get the winter fuel payment of up to £300, who are already missing last year's cost of living payment. Now, I've been shouting about this longer and louder than anybody else about getting pension credit. Yes, there's an uplift of 115%, but that's an increase of a maximum £20,000 a month. It would take you 4 years before all these people were claiming pension credit. The poorest pensioners, the poorest, under £11,400, you believe they should get pension credit and winter fuel, but they're not going to claim. They're the hardest to reach. You're not writing individual letters to them. You're not linking it to attendance allowance and housing benefit. There's lots you could do. So to try and talk about we're targeting the poorest, the truth is you're not targeting them. Why aren't you writing them bloody letters?
Ooh. True. Roast her. Get her, Martin. The thing about Martin Lewis as well is that he's one of the few people who you genuinely feel like he cares. I've had my criticisms of him in that I feel like for a very long time he was trying to fix the symptoms rather than the causes, when of course it was government policy that was the cause and he was sitting there trying to cover over the cracks. But then during the cost of living crisis, he changed his tack and said, actually, we can't solve this with tips and with trying to get consumers to change their behaviour, we need a change of policy. And he's really won me over in talking about the welfare state in positive terms because he has a lot of reach. There's been a lot of denigration of the welfare state because of neoliberalism and Conservative Party policy and austerity and all of that bollocks. They've really denigrated the idea of the welfare state, and he's a real champion for it. And I think he has a lot of sway with the public to try and change people's opinions on this. And, absolutely, I'm glad that he's really taking her to task because he's 100% right. What's in any way is incorrect out of what he said here?
Well, we are actually.
Sorry, apologies.
No, it's fine. And I know how strongly you feel about it, Martin. I know that you've been in to see the Chancellor, and we do take very seriously what you say, what Age UK says.
But you're not taking it seriously because you're not taking on any of the recommendations. Again, all of it's because you're obsessed with this means test that is stupid in the first place. And it's, again, as has been pointed out in chat, it's really tilting for them to claim that they care when they clearly didn't care about poor people, when she was in the background saying, I will destroy him as a man about Jeremy Corbyn, the person who actually wanted to keep the winter fuel payment and campaigned against the Conservatives when they tried to do it, and is still campaigning against Labour when they're trying to do it. Again, the man with the consistent position on ensuring that we have a welfare state there to protect poor pensioners, and that is Jeremy Corbyn. So if you're a right-winger who's watching, who votes Conservative or Reform, who are only actually taking the pro-welfare state position on this because they want your vote and not because they genuinely believe in the welfare state. There's one guy who also agrees with you on keeping the winter fuel payment, and it's always been Jeremy Corbyn. Maybe it's time to do some introspection on that one.
And we're working with the widest range of people to make sure that we do reach those people.
But the truth is, Lisa, you have to accept you're not going to reach them because those are the people hardest to reach. So how are you going to protect them?
In fairness, you just said to me, you're not writing bloody letters. Well, we are. And I just wanted to explain that because I don't want people to think that for a moment we're going to leave people high and dry. For that group of people, there's never been a drive to get them onto pension credit. And you're right that it is extremely challenging. You have people, for example, who've got dementia or other reasons why they've not applied for pension credit. They need far more support to be able to navigate the system. That's why we're working with local councils all over the country. My council in Wigan is writing out to everybody who they think is eligible. We've gone through all sorts of routes, like we have people who are on the assisted bin collection list, who we've identified as maybe a particularly vulnerable group. We're going door to door to make sure that if we're not getting
Again, how much time, energy and money are you expending for this stupid means test? Here are all these hoops that you can jump through, that we're helping you jump through to try and claim the pension credit that gets you access to the benefit that used to be universal. You are spending money, time and energy on trying to reach people who could be claiming when they aren't, when you could just be giving them the winter fuel payment and it'll be much more efficient and much cheaper. It's so stupid. Like, if anybody is making the perfect argument for why universalism is good, it's Lisa Nandy right here, talking about all the things that they now have to do now that they made this thing non-universal. So stupid, so silly.
A response that we're going and knocking on people's doors and finding out whether they're eligible or not. And we're working with councils all over the country to make sure that happens. We think it's better to do that at community level rather than at government level. But we will, of course, adjust that if it doesn't work. So far, though, the evidence is that it is.
No, so I'm sorry, I disagree on that. So first of all, are all councils doing it? But you say the evidence is. You're talking an uplift of 115%. You've gone from 20,000 a month claiming pension credit to 40,000 a month. But there are 780,000 people. You would need an exponential rise in the number of people claiming pension credit for those pensioners to claim this year. We have to accept, you have to accept, there will be many hundreds of thousands of the poorest pensioners under £11,400 income you will not reach this year. You are taking money out of their hands. Do you accept the truth? The reality is that's what will practically happen. I'm saying it.
What's this? Journalism? Actual questions? Basic scrutiny of a political actor? Well, I never, chat. All you had to do was get somebody who isn't actually a journalist to actually ask the real questions. And rather than allowing politicians to give non-answers, forcing them to answer the actual question and to admit the reality rather than prevaricating around the actual answer. Well done, Martin.
Age UK saying it, others are saying it. So let's be honest, you're willing to accept that collateral damage of hundreds of thousands of poorest pensioners, many on dementia, not getting the winter fuel payment?
No, I'm not willing to accept that.
But it's going to happen.
It's one of the reasons why we've extended the cut-off point to apply until April next year, so that even if people don't realise right now, despite this sort of conversation happening on national media, even if they don't see this, if they don't realise, if they don't respond to the letters, if we don't manage to catch them door to door in the run-up to Christmas, and they find out later that they were eligible, they can still apply and they will get it backdated. And the reason that we've done that, and the reason that we made this announcement early, and we haven't wasted a moment in going out to people, is to make sure that people know that even if they don't apply immediately, they don't have to worry about putting the heating on this winter. We are working in every creative way possible to make sure that this is done. We've inherited a situation where for 14
That's not what the question that you were asked. You were asked to essentially say that regardless of how many means that you try to go through to get people to claim, there will be people who won't claim and they will be losing out. That was the question that you were asked, Lisa, and you're not answering it.
Years, there has been no drive to get the poorest people onto pension credit and get them the money that they're entitled to, but we are absolutely determined to solve it. And I don't accept your characterisation that we're indifferent to this. I couldn't care more about this, neither could the Chancellor, and we're doing everything that we can with the Work and Pension Secretary to deal with the fact that we've inherited this enormous black hole and this appalling economic inheritance, to fix the problems the country's got, to get the economy moving and to protect the poorest people.
Secretary.
It's so frustrating hearing this over and over and over again. Like, sure, there were overspends in the Conservative budget. That's true. There was a £6 billion overspend in the Home Office. That's correct. But you have made the political choice to remove loads of people from the winter fuel payment to try and plug this theoretical gap rather than actually increasing taxes on the wealthiest, which you could do, and you're choosing not to do so. That's a fact. It's a basic fact. And unless you admit that it's a real political choice that you've made here, you're not answering the question. And as Ben points out in chat, doesn't matter how much you pretend that you care, that's not going to change the reality of what Martin Lewis just said, which is that people will lose their money unless they claim, and you cannot get everyone to claim. That is a fact. That is reality. No amount of you hand-wringing about how much you care. Again, didn't care enough to try and get the Labour Party elected in 2017, but regardless, no matter how many times you hand-wring about how much you care, that will not change the facts, because they don't care about your feelings.
It isn't a characterisation that you're indifferent, it's a characterisation that you have to accept that there will still be probably over 500,000 people that you do not reach over and let's be straight, when you're talking about there's been no campaign on pension credit, it is your government who chose to link the winter fuel payment to pension credit. You chose that metric, not anybody else. You can't put that on the past government. I just want you to say to me, how many people do you think by next April will be eligible for pension credit, so under 11,400 income, the poorest in society, and will not have claimed it? Because I'm willing to bet a lot of money it'll still be substantially north of over 500,000. So you have to accept that. And what are you going to do for those people who'll never apply because they're not in a mental position to answer the 240 question potential list of applying for pension credit?
Well, Martin, I don't want to make a bet with you. I want to work together to fix it. That's the ambition and the intention of our government. We are the Labour Party and we don't...
You're literally fixing a problem that you caused with your stupid policy. You know what the easiest fix is, Lisa? Do you know what the easiest fix is for all of this? U-turn. Admit that you got it wrong. Everyone opposes this. The trade unions oppose it. Your members oppose it. The right-wing parties in opposition oppose it. The left-wing parties in opposition oppose it. Green, Lib Dem, SNP, Reform, Conservative, TUV, right? All of them oppose your means test of the winter fuel payment. All of them do. Even your own membership and your own affiliated trade unions were picketing your own conference about it. That's how many people hate this policy. You're trying all of these solutions that are not going to actually have full coverage when you could just have the easiest solution, which would be to U-turn. I know it's politically inconvenient to admit that you're wrong, but you are wrong and you are massively against public opinion. And that is the easiest solution, is just to say, actually, let's not do the means test.
Leave the poorest people behind. Every time we've been in government, whether it's tackling pensioner poverty or child poverty under the last government and successive Labour governments, we support the poorest people.
In child poverty, you're not even scrapping the two-child benefit cap that's keeping 250,000 children in poverty. 250,000 little kids not being able to eat properly because of the fact that you're keeping the two-child benefit cap, making sure that they stay in poverty. Don't bullshit me. Don't come here onto my screen, Lisa Nandy, to try and pretend that you care about child poverty.
But what we cannot do is allow those people to pay a very heavy price for the economic chaos and instability that we've had over the last few years. And that's why we're fixing the foundations. That's why we've taken a difficult decision not to make this payment universal. But it's also why we're going out and doing everything that we can in order.
It was not a difficult decision. It was an easy decision. You wanted to do it in 2014. You wanted to do it again now because you love means testing. And the actual difficult decision would be to tax the rich because they're the ones who fund you. Simple as that.
To make sure that there isn't a pensioner who is left out or left behind, and that we're supporting the very poorest. Now, charities like Age UK are incredibly important to us in that we're working with the widest range of civil society organisations to make sure that we reach people. And if there are, I appreciate that people have different views about this, and I know that you have very strong views about the way in which we're implementing this policy, but the door is open and we are listening and we are determined to get this right.
Well, Secretary of State, thank you very much for your time. I hope you are right and I'm wrong, that there won't be hundreds of thousands of the poorest pensioners who should be getting winter fuel and pension credit who don't get it, but I don't believe it.
All right. Lisa.
Love it. Love the sign off there. Just immediately going, it's a bunch of nonsense, really. I hope that you're correct, but you're definitely wrong. Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for membership to just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.